Hi, hello. It just started raining, but I'm too lazy to stop recording because of it, so let's just hope it doesn't get too violent. Always kind of unexpected in Thailand. So this video is going to be a short one. I just wanted to talk about 5 things that I've learned by moving abroad and living abroad overall, also traveling, but mainly living. So to give a little bit of a context, I am French. I was born and raised in France. Since I was a kid, I've always been really interested in going abroad, and I would always say that if you haven't seen all the places in the world, how would you know where you want to live later in life? Which is kind of idealistic, but at the same time, I do stand by those words in the sense that I feel like you should be curious to live and experience other places other than your own home country, because if your parents decided to go to South Africa or Brazil before you were born, your life would have been completely different and you would have been completely different. So just because your parents decided to go somewhere doesn't mean you have to live there your whole life. At the same time, one thing that I really want to stress is the fact that every trip that I took and every places I've been to, I've been there because of personal interest and because I was able to study in those countries or work in those countries. And I am very lucky. So everything I'm going to say is simply based on my own experience, so I can't talk for anybody else. But the first thing that I learned is that you are way more capable than what you think you are. Before leaving for England, for example, and before leaving for South Korea, I was in my comfort zone and friends with people who spoke my language, with my family and my friends. And I had those very anxious moments of thinking, God, how am I going to survive out there, How am I going to speak the language? How am I going to navigate in that country? How am I going to manage the whole admin side of it in a country that's not even mine, when I can't even handle my own admin things in France? I was very scared about everything, but I was mainly scared about the fact that it was unknown and that I didn't know how I was going to react to it. But then when I was thrown into this, I realized how capable I was of doing things. I was capable of finding a job on the side, of improving my English and taking those classes, making friends. And then you realize that it's just about putting yourself out there and putting yourself out of your comfort zone and actually trusting the fact that you'll know what's good for you when you are in that kind of like more unstable space, because all of those little habits, living habits that you're going to get, in South Korea, just the fact that I had my little supermarket that I went to get my fruits and vegetables, or just the fact that I knew how to navigate around the city. I knew some words to communicate some basic things with people on markets, and all of this, it just makes your self-esteem and your self-confidence skyrocket, because you realize that you're actually very capable of doing it. And all of those thoughts, they were just fears that settled before because you haven't been confronted to it. So just go out there. Second thought that came to mind: people don't care. Nobody cares about you. You can do whatever you want. There is this whole idea that, it's a bit weird to go to the restaurant alone, to go to the cinema alone, or to, take that hiking trip on your own, or all of those sort of preconceived ideas of what's weird and what's awkward and what's not. Always bothered me, but at the same time, I still believed in them. But then when I arrived abroad in places where people didn't even look like me, they didn't speak my language, I just realized that nobody cares about you. You can do whatever you want, and it's so liberating, because I didn't have this sense, the fact that you don't have this sense of belonging when you go somewhere else, it makes it way easier to take that step. And now I feel very comfortable going back to France and actually doing stuff on my own and not relying on anyone. But I feel like before I went abroad, and it was the first time I was 18 when I went to Oxford. Before that, I feel like my self-confidence wasn't as high, and I wouldn't really trust myself to do those things alone. But then going other places, you're like, okay, people abroad don't give a shit about me eating this meal on my own or doing this activity on my own. Why would I be bothered by people I don't even know in my home country? Third thing that you get when you move abroad is that living and traveling are two very different things. You get a very interesting input for each of them. And I don't think that one is better than the other necessarily. It just depends on what you're looking for. But living has nothing to do with traveling, because when you travel, if you don't like a place, you can just book your tickets and leave the next day. You don't have to stay. But when you live somewhere, you actually took that decision, and now you have to stick to that place for a few months, even though you don't really like it. And this is also what can make it hard. But on another hand, I feel like at some point in your exchange, at some point in your working abroad experience, or at some point in your being abroad without having any goal in life, like whichever it is, you hit that wall of, I'm very homesick and I don't know what to do about it, and I can't go back because I have responsibilities here. And when you actually manage to get past that wall, this is what makes it so rewarding afterwards, because you learn so much from the simple fact of staying in that space, even if you were struggling to, and living, you really immerse yourself into a culture that's not yours. And I feel like this is also so important for you to be confronted to people who don't even eat the same things or don't act the same way. There's so many things that you learn from those people everywhere. You can learn something from literally anyone that's surrounding you, and even more when they don't come from your country, and even more when you have to stay. The fourth thing, don't believe what people say, just go and see for yourself. This I cannot stress enough. I feel like we tend to listen to the people around us who talk about places or populations or trip that they had, and we just believe it, even though every opinion on it is going to be very different, because every opinion is literally based on the human experiences that you had in that place. I have this sort of mechanism today when people says something bad about a place, it just gives me another reason to go, because I'm just annoyed at the fact that they're I'm not annoyed at the fact that they have an opinion on it. I'm just annoyed that they're trying to make me believe what they say, because I might have a completely different experience on the place, So yeah, just go out there, see for yourself, stop listening to what you're being said, just check it out. The fifth thing is that you should expect loneliness, but it shouldn't keep you from going. Living abroad can be very lonely. It can honestly be very challenging, socially speaking, because especially when you, for my example, it was always very different because I went studying in other places, and when you're a student, it's so easy to meet people. But here, because I work, and Bangkok is kind of a place people come and go. So if I make friends, I'm going to see them for a few days, and then they'll be gone, and then new people again, and then they'll leave again. And loneliness is something you really face, and it hits you, because when you're homesick, you just want to see the people you love, but they're far away. And especially when you work, I feel like it's way more complicated, because work is taking most of your time, but at the same time you don't really have those people that you know by heart that you're going to see at the end of the day. You kind of have to still put effort and energy into meeting new people and investing in relationships, but you don't even know if those people are going to be your friends afterwards. So loneliness is really present, and people don't say it much, but it's really important to say it, I think. because it's going to be present and you'll have to face it and you'll have to navigate it on your own, but it doesn't mean that it's impossible. So you should go anyways, and you'll discover more about yourself by doing that too.